let's begin with a curve in the two-dimensional plane. I've got an x-axis and I've got a y-axis. But I can think of this curve three-dimensionally. If I look at this two-dimensional plane and I sort of rotate my perspective, change my camera angle a little bit, I can think of that plane as embedded in three dimensions, an x and a y as I had before, but now also a z-axis. And when I have that scenario, I can imagine things like rotating in three dimensions. So let me take this curve and let me rotate it around the x-axis. And what that gets is something that looks a little bit like this. It gives me, that is, a surface area of revolution. So our goal in this video is to come up with a formula for how to compute surface areas of revolutions for examples like this one. By the way, back in Calculus 1, we talked about regions that are formed by revolution, but in Calculus 1, we talked about the volume inside of this region. But what I'm doing here is just asking the surface area of the outer shell. Now, how could we actually compute something like this? We're in calculus, which means that we're going to use the same idea that we did for arc length that we've done for many other topics in calculus, which is we take this region, which is large and complicated, and we break it up into a list of smaller regions that we can understand. We figure out how that's going to work, and we take a limit as the number of regions goes to infinity. So in this case, what I'm going to focus on is not the entire thing, but just one little ribbon. If I just take a small portion of the curve and rotate just that small portion of the curve, I get a ribbon like this. It has a small surface area, and the question is, what is that small surface area? And if I can answer that, if I can figure out the surface area just of the ribbon here, then I add a whole bunch of those ribbons up all in a row until I get my total surface area. That's going to be my approximation. Now, the first thing I think about when I think about how to do the surface area for this little ribbon is that it's pretty close to a circle. There is indeed some width to it, but if I ignored that for a moment, it would just look like a circle, and I know at least what the circumference of a circle is. It's 2 pi times the radius. So in this scenario here, where the radius goes from the x-axis up to my function, what that's going to tell me is that the radius is just the value of the function. So I'm going to put a little radius in here. I'm going to call this, the radius is f of some point xi star. What I mean by xi star here, star means I don't know exactly what the point is, but I'm imagining taking my x from a to b and chopping it up into n different components. I can have an ith little region, and xi star is just some point, I don't know exactly what it is, but some point in the ith little region. Now you might point out that because this ribbon is sort of twisted up a little bit, it makes it appear that, say, the left-hand side has a smaller radius than the right-hand side. That's true, but if we think about the limit as the number of subdivisions goes to infinity, that indeed the width is going to be getting smaller and smaller, and the difference between these is going to get smaller and smaller. So I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to choose some point in the middle, and f of xi star, that is going to be the radius. And on the radius, the circumference is just going to be then 2 pi times that radius. Now, the next thing I have to deal with, and this is the tricky part, is dealing with the width. Because if I look here at the width here, it's actually not parallel to the x-axis. This function is not completely flat. The function is curved up a little bit. And so as a result, you have a ribbon that's a little bit twisted. So this width is more than just delta x. And we're going to have to deal with that. We're going to open up this problem of figuring out the width in a moment. But if we had the width, I could approximate this as just the surface area is the circumference, this 2 pi times f of xi star, times the width. So what is that width? Let me look at this problem two-dimensionally to make the graphics a little bit easier. I have some curve, so here's my curve, x squared again. What I am going to do is the same basic process that we did when we talked about arc length. I'm going to put a bunch of points down, and I'm going to have a bunch of straight lines between all those points. In this case, I've divided up into 5 different regions. And then when we were deriving the arc length formula, we talked about how delta x was going to be the change in the horizontal, and delta y sub I was going to be the change in the vertical. And delta y sub I depended on what I it was going to change. Then you could use Pythagoras to figure out the length of that secant line, and the length of that secant line was going to be square root of delta x squared plus delta yi squared. And then the final thing, the most important part of the arc length video that we did, was we applied the mean value theorem to replace this delta yi with instead the derivative of the function at some point xi star delta x. Now, I'm not going to repeat why we did that. That's in the arc length video. You can go and take a look at that. However, now that we know what this little length is, that is exactly the width in the previous picture. So if I go back to my three-dimensional case here, I'm trying to figure out, well, what is the width? Well, the width in my approximation is precisely that length of that little straight line. So in place of the width, I'm going to come along here and put in that square root of all of that nonsense. Well, this is my surface area, or at least my approximated surface area for this ribbon. But remember what my goal is. My goal is not just this ribbon, it's the entire thing. So what do I have to do? I have to add them up. So I'm going to take this region here, this surface area, which is just for the one ribbon, and I'm going to take the sum of it from 1 up to n, and that's going to add all the different ribbons all the way along and construct the entire surface area. Final couple things to do. First, I've got a delta x in multiple places. I'm going to factor that out. That cleans it up a little bit. And then I'll do the key trick of calculus, which is to say I take a limit of this thing as n goes to infinity. And when I do that, when I take the limit as n goes to infinity, I first change from an approximation to an equal sign, and I change the summation to an integral. So what happens? We get that the surface area is the integral from a up to b. Those are my endpoints in x. The 2 pi f of the continuous variable x now, and then I put in my square root of this 1 plus the derivative squared, all of that times dx. That is my surface area of revolution formula. All right, let's do an example of this. So here's my formula, and I want to consider the example x cubed from 0 up to 1. That is, I'm trying to find the surface area. Here's the picture one more time with x cubed put in there. I'm trying to figure out that whole surface area. So in the arc length formula, my function is going to be the x cubed, and my endpoints, the a and the b, are going to be the 0 and the 1. So I can plug that into the formula. What I get is the integral from 0 to 1 of 2 pi the function, 2 pi times x cubed. And then the derivative of x cubed is 3x squared, so I put that in for f prime. So I get a square root of 1 plus 3x squared all squared dx. And now this is just an integral that we can try to compute. So how do we do that? Well, I think I would make u to be the inside of my square root, so I can plug that in here. U is the 1 plus 3 squared is 9x to the fourth. Du is therefore 36x cubed. I can make the transformation of the limits of integration, that when I plug in x equal to 0, I'm going to get 1. When I plug in x equal to 1, I'm going to get 10 for my u. Then entirely writing this in terms of u's, I get the integral from 1 up to 10 of 2 pi over 36 square root u. I integrate that, I plug in the values, and I get a final answer. All right, so we have managed to repeat what we did for arc length, the process of breaking it up into a bunch of different regions and trying to figure out exactly what the lengths of the straight lines were. Everything we did for arc length, we have just done it again now for surface area of revolution, where effectively we took the arc length and we rotated all of those little pieces around, multiplying by the 2 pi f of x as we did so. And then finally we've seen that this works out pretty simply in an actual explicit example.